that wasn't the most complicated riff I've ever played on this channel, but it's a classic. And frankly, that AC/DC riff never sounded better. Not that it sounded bad before, but ever since I got my Peterson tuner and I've been dabbling with these Sweetened tunings, it just sounds amazing. I bought this pedal thinking it'd be pretty much just plug and play. Although, to be honest, aside from the insane level of accuracy, I really didn't have a clue just how versatile this tuner is. It didn't take too long before I felt like I was drowning in options, menus, settings, and with no idea what the heck to do with any of it. So I spent all the time learning I could, not just how it works, but how to actually set it up for real use and practical personalized application. In this video, I'll walk you through the key settings to check on your Peterson StroboStomp HD and how to avoid a few of the headaches I encountered and hopefully alleviate some of the confusion. And I'll show you one setting that's on by default, but that might not actually be what you want. And then there's another one that might be set to the exact opposite of what you might be used to. Alrighty, let's get tuned up. Alright, first off, I just want to say this is a pretty sturdy feeling, well-built tuner pedal. This thing's robust. But for all its capabilities, the layout's actually pretty simple. Basically, it's 4 buttons and 1 stomp switch. But there is kind of a cool feature hidden on the back inside the battery compartment. It's got, I don't know how easy this will be to see. I'll try to zoom in after I'm done recording, but it's got a little 3-way selector switch in here, and this is for a buffer, for a built-in buffer. Straight out of the box, it's on buffered bypass monitor mode by default, which means the buffer is on and the monitor display screen stays on at all times, so you can monitor your guitar's tuning while you play. The other positions are buffered bypass, where the buffer's on, but the monitor display is only on when you have the mute switch engaged for tuning. The other way, like I said, it's on at all times while you're playing. And then if you wanted, you could switch it all the way to the left, and that would be true bypass mode if you didn't want the buffer active. Maybe you already got buffers in your setup, or I don't know, maybe you feel like you don't need them for whatever reason. That would have to kind of be an individual choice. Getting back to the top and front side of the tuner, it's got a nice large display, as you can see. It's got 2 display modes, tune screen and the settings screen. Right now what we're seeing is called the tune screen. And then there's the stomp switch. And then, like I said, 4 buttons. You got 2 on each side. On the left you got menu up and menu down. And then on the right you've got what's value. It's value plus and value minus. The menu up and menu down changes the parameter that's active for editing, and then the ones on the right, the value plus and minus, they make the actual changes while you're editing the parameter. And I should mention, if you're diving into this pedal for its accuracy and the Sweetened tuning features, I've got a free tab pack of Van Halen riffs and licks. I'd love to send it your way. Just type tabs in the comments and I'll hook you up with that. That way you can test out some classic riffs with these authentic tunings. So as I mentioned, you cycle through the various parameters with the menu buttons on the left. And one setting you might want to change is the display color. The out-of-the-box default is this orange, but there are 9 other built-in colors you can choose from. And the display can be set at 2 separate levels. You have your global setting, which will it will affect all the colors, but then you can also kind of level down. And depending on which preset you happen to be in, you can also change the display color for each preset on an individual basis. So you can do that too, and that way they're easier to identify from a distance if you can remember what color you've assigned to which. But I'll show that when we take a look at the presets. Right now we're going to do the global parameters in the settings screen, and so I will update the global color just for fun. Orange isn't my favorite, but whatever. So by default, when you turn the pedal on, it's going to be in tune screen display. And there's just a handful of parameters that can be added from there that apply strictly just to that active preset. But we'll get to more on that in a minute. Alright, to get into the settings screen, you click one of the menu buttons on the left. It doesn't matter which one, but you do that until the settings gear appears in the upper left corner. And then when that happens, you get into it by clicking either one of the value buttons. and then we're into the settings screen. So now from here, I can cycle through the various parameters. The one that's flashing right now is the palette, and I'll try to zoom in after the fact with the video, but it says global under it, and that indicates that this is going to be a global change to all the settings, like I said, unless I go into a setting specifically and update the color. Oops. And then if you wait too long like I just did, it'll go back out. So now I'll have to hit the menu button again, settings, back in, palette is blinking, so I'm going to hit that button, and I can just cycle through the different colors. So there's a sample of what they are. I'm going to go with this green one just for this video. I find that kind of easy to read. So to get into the settings screen, you push one of the menu buttons. Doesn't really matter which one. Seems to work faster if you use the menu up though from that Tune Home screen. So if I go menu up, there's the gear icon, whoops. And if you miss it, then so when it's in the tune screen, these value buttons are going to change which preset you have active. Just be aware of that. Mine's on Sweetened guitar right now, so if I see that change, I know I screwed up and I'll have to back out and whatever. So I'm going to go back into the menu, the settings, with the menu button, get in, global palette change. I already did that, so I'm going to menu cycle down to the next. This flashing on and off, well, it's flashing on. This is changed with the stomp switch. And what this is, it's individual preset visibility. It's on by default, and so this is the Somebody Get Me a Doctor preset. I put that in like 2 videos ago. I can turn it off, so now if I cycle through, it won't show, or I can leave it on so that as I cycle through the with the menu buttons, it will show up in my list. This way you can show only the presets that you actually want to use. Now if I cycle down to the next one, and by the way, this thing comes loaded with like 130 presets. There's ones that are called guided tuning. I don't think those are shown, so you're probably looking at about 50 of them though that are still showing. And I don't know, if you're going to use that, all those default settings, then you probably want to leave it on. But for me, I only, like, there's about 5 of them I want, and then I want to use all my custom ones, which I haven't even loaded into it yet, because I'm going to show you how to do that in another video. Now if I wanted to toggle all the presets off and then just turn on the ones that I want to use, let me go back. And so that's what, when this is flashing in the lower corner, that means you're setting whatever preset's showing to on or off, okay? And then you can change the preset with the plus and minus button, and you can cycle through. You could do these all one at a time this way, running with the devil, off, or I can have it on. Equal temperament, I don't have to show that. You always have to have one showing though, that's a rule. And if you only have one showing, that's the one that's gonna pick. So if you want something else to be your one that shows, you have to make sure something else is on. And what I'm driving at is you can turn all of them off with a simple little shortcut. If I hold menu down and value minus at the same time, now I just turned everything off except the one that was highlighted. So I could cycle through all of these and they're all off. If I want to turn them all on, I can hold menu up and plus together, and now they should all be on. If I cycle through backwards, the ones we just looked at that were all off, see, now they're all back on. So that's a way you can quickly turn off like everything, and then you can just cycle through them individually and turn the ones you want on with the foot switch. So I'm going to be doing that because I don't need all these presets that they loaded in here. I want like the Sweetened setting. I don't even really care about the equal temperament one, but I'll keep that on there just because, but I'll probably put it way at the end of my list. So after that one, you have octave display. It's off by default. What's this mean? Okay, your A440 hertz reference, you know, high E string, 5th fret, that's called octave 4. So if I had turned that on, it would basically be, it would say A4 instead of just A. I don't care about that because, like, who's gonna be off by an entire octave? Your guitar wouldn't even You'd have so much string slack if you were too low, and you'd break a string if you were too high. It just kind of seems like a silly setting. Now this one's a weird one to me. This is the accidentals, and by default they have it on sharp. You can also have it on both, so it'll show what the sharp name and the flat name is. To me, the genre I play, I mean, we talk about tuning our guitars down, so I am going to change this one. I'm going to change it to read flats, so that if I'm tuning to E flat, I'm not seeing D sharp, G sharp, C sharp. I want to see E flat, A flat, etc. And as a matter of fact, and I do know my enharmonics, but like I'd rather not think about that when I'm tuning. But if you happen to have a preset that has different accidental settings than what your global is, that preset will override it. So like, you know, if for some reason, like I had a setting that I needed it to read in sharps, it could still read in sharps. It's just, without being overridden, they're going to read in flats. And then after that is the configuration. We can change which configuration is active. Default, user. I kind of want to stay in user. Then we've got this auto order presets. What this does is, you may want to think twice about that one, and it just timed out on me, but I'm not going to change it anyways at this time. But what it does, if you turn it off, actually let me go into it because I want to show you how you can turn it off. The minus button on the value side, minus on the right turns it off, plus turns it back on. If it's on, it's going to take your most recently used presets and put them at the top of your list that you cycle through as you push minus and plus to get through your tuning presets. That's how that works. If you have it off, and let's say you like the order that, because you can go onto the website, Peterson Tuners, and get into their Peterson Connect, and that's going to be, I'm going to go into more of that in my next video. I kind of touched on it a little bit in the last one, but I'll really show you the ins and outs of that in the next one. But in there, you can like put your presets in whatever order you want, and maybe you like the order they're in. You might not want it to reorder, so you might want to turn that off in that case. A couple final notes on the settings screen. In the lower corner here, the lower right corner, it shows your firmware version. So that's, you know, you can always just kind of look at the website and make sure you've got the latest version. I just updated mine recently, so it should be good. I did it like a couple days ago. Now, if you need or just want to do a factory reset button, what you can do is you click one of the menu buttons, and I think the fastest way to get there is going with the up. Oh, well, you have to be in settings first. I'm in the tune screen. Duh. Okay, so enter your settings. And then I could exit right away. This is telling me about the hardware. When factory reset is flashing like that, if I wanted to reset this to like I've never done anything with it, you click either value button. And then when the timer's going, you can hit any button except the stomp switch. That didn't work. But I had to test it. But when the timer that was on the screen, let me just do it one more time so you get this clear. Okay, go on the settings. The down arrow gets you there the fastest. I lied. I'm thinking ass backwards. Factory reset. Push either one of these value buttons on the right. A timer starts. If you want to abort, you hit any button. Just any of the four, not the stomp switch, and that'll cancel it. Okay, now we're going to take a look at the tune screen, which should be a little bit less of a hassle for me because that's what's on by default. Like, I don't have to go into that settings screen. What's going to happen on the tune screen is we're going to be changing parameters just for whatever tuning preset is active. So in this case, it's the Sweetened guitar tuning. And speaking of that, this is actually a good place for me to kind of introduce the topic of Sweetened tunings in case you don't know what they are. But if you do, I'm curious if you're using any of the Sweetened tuning presets on your StroboStomp, or are you just sticking with standard equal temperament tuning? Let me know down in the comments. I'm curious because I just kind of started getting into this recently, and I think it's pretty fascinating, and it sounds great. Now, if you have a standard, like older school, I don't know what you'd call it, like a needle, you know, one of those kind of electronic tuners, it's basically going to be set up for equal temperament tuning. And unless you're using some kind of an open tuning or something with different intervals, this means that between each pair of strings will be an exact, strict, perfect fourth, except between the G and B, which will be an exact major third, equally with total equal intervals. And so, meaning that, you know, they won't be off any cents. So if there's 100 cents in a semitone, you're going to be 500 cents for your perfect fourths and 400 cents for your major third. And in a lot of applications with guitar, this doesn't necessarily produce the most pleasing sound. So a lot of artists will employ a sweetened tuning, where the intervals between some of these strings, they may tweak them slightly by these increments known as cents, which is 1/100th of a semitone. And what this does is it helps certain chord shapes and intervals particularly sound more pleasant consistently across the fretboard. Now, your Peterson StroboStomp comes preloaded with about 130 of these tuning presets, including a default EVH Eddie Van Halen one, of course, which caught my eye when I was shopping these online. And in addition to that, though, there are several user presets available online via Peterson Connect, as I noted in my previous video, and we'll be getting into more in the next one. Now, I think I might have mentioned earlier, but if I didn't, I may have forgot, but the active default preset is the EQU, which is equal temperament. There's no sweetening. It's A440 as your reference pitch, and you got all of those 500 cents for perfect fourths and 400 cents for your major third. No variation. Now you can change the preset to something else by either, so if you don't touch anything, like just as the pedal's on, that's the default thing that's going to get changed if I hit plus or minus. So it just changed to SIT. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's a sitar or something. Probably is a sitar. But that probably is like at the bottom of my list. But if I go the other way, there's these other tunings. I got some, yeah. Oh, it's because I turned them all on when I was showing you that feature. That's all right. I'm going to factory reset this anyway to get it ready for another video I got to do, but whatever. But if I do the menu, see, now it's blinking, and I can change it to something else when it's blinking. Or if nothing's blinking, I can still, by default, that's the item that will change with the value buttons. Now, if I just start going through the menu options, see, the first one was to change which preset I have on. The next one is this capo. It's called capo/drop, and it's at 0 by default. But what this does, if you're going to use a drop tuning or you're going to put a capo on your guitar and you don't want to think about what the resulting note will be, you can just set that 0 to a number. Like, let's say I'm going to put the capo at the 5th fret, okay? And I'm going to put it back to 0 because I don't really want to do that. But you just plus up until you get the number you want. What that's going to do is, instead of this thing reading out A, D, G, C, E, and A for the strings, and you having to think, is that right? If you just put 5 in there, it'll still tell you what the regular string name is. So you can just see if is the E string in tune with the capo at the 5th fret. It'll do all that. Like, the tuner will know, but it'll just tell you the actual, like, the common name, I guess, of the string. So you don't have to do all that conversion in your head. So that's menu down, and then if menu down again, you can change your concert A 440 reference by tenths of a hertz, and you can go all the way down to like 390, and I think the high end, I think you can go up to 490. So for you 432 fans, there you go. You click that minus button, I guess it would be like 80 times, something like that, or you can probably hold it down. Let's try that. This is something I don't personally mess with, so yeah, if you hold it down, it cycles it a whole hertz at a time, but if you just tap it, it goes by tenths. I'm gonna leave mine because I just use Sweetened tunings anyway, so I don't really care. So that was capo, concert, reference, pitch. This note thing, this is like This isn't even available for all the tunings, so I'm not really going to get into it. But basically, some tunings are called guided tunings, and what that means, they're kind of more for like beginners, where instead of the note, it'll just show what the string number is, and the tuner itself will keep track of the note and just, hey, you're tuning the 6th string and you're flat or sharp, because it'll know what the note is supposed to be based on the info in the preset. But a total beginner might not remember what note they're trying to get, but they know that I want this tuning and I know this is the 6th string. So I've been doing this for longer than I'd like to admit, so I'm not gonna. But now if I go one more past that, here's the palette. So I can change the color. And so let's just change the color we'll change it to this nice looking light blue for Sweetened guitar. And then I'll just wait for it to be done. Okay, so now like I said before, if you do that within the tune screen, it'll just be for that particular preset, right? So if I change to a different preset, we're back to that green that I set globally. All these other ones are still green. So that's how that works. And then if you hold the menu down and the value minus together for 2 seconds, it'll reset the active preset to the defaults. So let's just see what happens. There we go. So it turned it back to the global, which is green. Now, if you are thinking about picking up one of these tuners, I do have an affiliate link in the description. It won't cost you anything extra, but it does help my channel out because I earn a small commission for the referral, and of course I appreciate that. All right, so there you have it. I recommend at the least that you make sure your buffer switch is set to your preference. Consider turning off visibility for the presets you're not going to use. And for me personally, I prefer the accidentals to show flats. It just seems more intuitive to the style I play. Most importantly, experiment a bit, see what works for you, and personalize your tuner. Make it yours. Take advantage of all it can do, and if you haven't already, check out some of those Sweetened tunings. If this video helped you finally get your StroboStomp set up to your liking, hit that like button. That'll help more players find this. And if you want to hear how one of the many Sweetened Van Halen tunings actually sounds from this pedal, check out my video on that right here.